I was standing in the driveway of my own home, holding a casserole dish my neighbor had asked me to return, when my phone rang. It was Pemberton. In 27 years of working together, Pemberton had never once called me after 7 in the evening. He was a man of routine, of leather-bound calendars and handwritten appointment cards. So when his name lit up my screen at 7:42 on a Tuesday night, my stomach dropped before I even answered. "Gene," he said. "No hello. No pleasantries." His voice had a quality I had only heard once before, the night my wife Joan was diagnosed. "Do not go inside your house. Get in your truck and drive to my office. Right now. Do not talk to your daughter. Do not talk to her husband. Do not sign anything. Do you hear me? Do not sign a single piece of paper." I looked through the kitchen window. My daughter Melanie was inside, setting the dining table with the good china, the set Joan and I had bought in Savannah on our 25th anniversary. Darren, my son-in-law, was opening a bottle of red wine, laughing at something on his phone. They had invited me over for a weeknight dinner, which should have been my first clue. Melanie hadn't cooked for me voluntarily in 3 years. "What is going on, Pemberton?" I asked, stepping back into the shadow of the old magnolia tree. "Your daughter filed paperwork this afternoon to obtain emergency guardianship over you. She has a physician's statement claiming you have advanced cognitive decline. She has a buyer lined up for your property, Gene, 42 acres of waterfront land. They want to close by Friday." The casserole dish slipped from my fingers. It hit the flagstone and cracked clean in half. The sound was sharp and final, like a bone breaking. I stood there looking at the 2 pieces of ceramic on the ground, and I thought about the first time I held Melanie. She was 6 pounds, 4 ounces. She had Joan's nose and my stubborn chin. I promised her the world. I promised her I would never let anything hurt her. I never imagined she would be the thing that hurt me. I left the casserole where it fell. I got in my truck. I drove to Pemberton's office without looking back. The thing about me is that people see what they want to see. They see a 69-year-old man in worn boots and a flannel shirt who lives alone on a piece of land outside Beaumont, Texas. They see the rust on my truck and the dirt under my nails, and they think they know my story. Retired roughneck, pension and Social Security. Simple man, simple life. They don't know that I spent 40 years building Callahan Maritime from a single tugboat into the 3rd largest private shipping operation on the Gulf Coast. They don't know that when I retired, I didn't sell the company. I moved it into a blind trust and kept 55% of the voting shares. They don't know that the weathered hands they pity are the same hands that signed contracts worth more than their houses. I kept my name out of the papers. I kept my face off the websites. I did it to protect my family, to keep them grounded, to make sure Melanie grew up knowing the value of $1. What a joke that turned out to be. Pemberton was waiting for me with the lights blazing and 2 cups of black coffee on his desk. He didn't waste time. He spread the documents out like a surgeon laying out instruments before an operation. "Here's what we're dealing with," he said. "Melanie and Darren are $340,000 in debt. Darren lost his job at the logistics firm 4 months ago. He didn't tell anyone. He has been day trading with their savings and lost almost everything. Their house payment is 90 days past due. The bank sent a final notice last week. I picked up the notice. I read the numbers. I set it down." "And the doctor?" I asked. Pemberton slid another paper across the desk. "A man named Dr. Loomis. His practice is in a strip mall between a vape shop and a nail salon. He had his license suspended in Louisiana for falsifying insurance claims. He got it reinstated here on appeal. He owes money to the same people Darren owes money to. They found each other the way rats always find each other, by following the smell of garbage." "So my daughter bought a diagnosis," I said. Pemberton nodded. "She paid Loomis to write a letter stating that you exhibit signs of severe dementia and are unable to manage your affairs. With that letter and the guardianship petition, she can take control of your finances, your property, and your medical decisions. She can sell your land, Gene. She can put you in a facility." I looked at the ceiling. I counted the tiles. I did this to keep from putting my fist through the wall. "What do you want to do?" Pemberton asked. "I want to let them think they are winning," I said. I want to give them enough rope to hang themselves with. And then I want to pull the floor out from under them so hard they don't stop falling until they hit bedrock. Pemberton leaned back in his chair. He had known me for 27 years. He had seen me negotiate with oil companies, with port authorities, with unions that wanted to shut down the entire coast. He knew what I looked like when I was finished talking and ready to start building. He picked up his pen. Tell me the plan, Jean. The next morning, Melanie showed up at my house at 9 sharp. She was driving the Lexus I had helped her buy 3 years ago, though I was starting to suspect the payments had lapsed on that too. She came inside without knocking, which was new. She used to ring the doorbell and wait. Now she walked in like she already owned the place. Dad, she said, her voice pitched in that honeyed tone that I had learned to distrust. I am so glad you are home. I was worried when you didn't come to dinner last night. Are you feeling okay? You look tired. I rubbed my eyes. I let my shoulders sag. I looked at her with an expression I had practiced in the bathroom mirror that morning, the look of a man slowly losing his grip on the world. I forgot, I said. I think I drove somewhere last night, but I cannot remember where. I woke up this morning and my truck was parked crooked. Did you call me? I don't remember a call. Melanie's eyes lit up, not with concern, with opportunity. She exchanged a quick glance with Darren, who was leaning against the door frame drinking orange juice from my refrigerator. That is exactly what we have been worried about, Dad. That is why we set up an appointment for you today. Just a quick checkup. A specialist named Dr. Loomis. He is supposed to be very thorough. I let my hand shake as I reached for my coffee cup. I made sure they both saw it. Darren stepped forward. He was 44 years old, built like a man who had once played college football and then spent 20 years letting it go. He had this way of talking to me like I was a slow child, overly loud, overly simple, with a patience that was thin as tissue paper. It is nothing scary, Jean, just some questions. We want to make sure you are safe out here by yourself. This is a big property. Lots of things can go wrong. What if you left the stove on? What if you fell? I almost smiled. The stove line. It was the same script every time. I had read about this in the elder abuse cases Pemberton had handled. They always mentioned the stove. They always mentioned falling. They always framed the cage as a safety net. I guess I could go, I mumbled. Will there be parking? Melanie pulled me toward the door so fast I nearly tripped. There is parking, Dad. Come on, I will drive. Dr. Loomis had an office that matched his reputation. The carpet was stained. The fluorescent lights buzzed like dying insects. The magazines in the waiting room were from 2 years ago. The receptionist's desk was empty. This was not a place where people came to get well. This was a place where paperwork got manufactured. Loomis came out himself. He was a tall man, thin, with a goatee that was trying too hard, and eyes that never stayed still. He wore a lab coat that didn't quite fit, and a watch that was too expensive for a doctor working out of a strip mall. He shook Melanie's hand first. Then he turned to me. He didn't introduce himself. He didn't ask how I was feeling. He looked at me like a mechanic, looks at a car that is about to be scrapped. Come on back, Mr. Callahan, he said. Let's have a chat. The examination room was small and cold. Loomis didn't take my blood pressure. He didn't check my heart rate. He didn't look in my eyes or test my reflexes. He sat down on a rolling stool, clicked a pen, and started asking questions designed to produce a specific answer. Mr. Callahan, what year is it? I squinted at the wall. I let my mouth hang open slightly. 1996? No. Wait. Is it still the 90s? Loomis scribbled on his clipboard. And who is the current president? I could see Melanie standing by the door, arms crossed, watching me fumble with a look of barely concealed satisfaction. She was enjoying this. She was watching her father's mind disintegrate, or so she thought, and she was calculating the value of each lost synapse. Loomis ran through a few more questions. He asked me to count backward from 100 by sevens. I got to 93 and then stared at the ceiling for 30 seconds before mumbling something about Joan wanting me to pick up milk. He asked me to draw a clock. I drew a circle with all the numbers bunched on one side. He never once looked at me like a doctor looks at a patient. He looked at me like a notary looks at a document. He was just there to stamp it. Then he pulled out a prescription pad. "I am going to prescribe something to help with the agitation," he said. "Haloperidol. It will keep him calm." I knew haloperidol. I knew it because when Callahan Maritime built the medical wing at Mercy General 15 years ago, I had read every pharmaceutical safety protocol in the construction spec. Haloperidol was a chemical restraint. It turned sharp minds into pudding. Prescribing it without cardiac screening, without a proper neurological workup, was not just negligent. It was dangerous. I leaned forward in my chair. I let the fog clear from my eyes for just a moment. Just a flash. "Haloperidol," I said, my voice dropping the quaver. "That is a first-generation antipsychotic. You are prescribing it without an EKG, without checking for QT prolongation. Federal Regulation 42 CFR 483.12 classifies unnecessary chemical restraints as abuse in long-term care settings. Are you classifying this visit as long-term care intake, doctor?" The room went silent. Loomis's pen stopped moving. His eyes snapped to mine. For 1 second he saw me. Not the trembling old man in the flannel shirt. Me. Melanie stepped forward. "What is he talking about? He is confused again. He watches too much television." I slumped back in the chair. I let my eyes go glassy. "I saw it on a show," I mumbled. "The man on the show said doctors go to jail for giving pills to old people. He said doctors who lost their license in Louisiana get in trouble." Loomis went pale. His hand gripped the edge of the clipboard so hard his knuckles turned white. I had just told him, in the babbling language of a madman, that I knew exactly who he was. I knew about Louisiana. I knew about the suspension. I knew everything. But greed is a powerful drug. Loomis looked at Melanie. He looked at the envelope she had slipped him in the waiting room when she thought I wasn't watching. He looked at his debts. He signed the paper. "Severe cognitive impairment," he said, his voice cracking. "Incapable of managing personal or financial affairs. Immediate guardianship recommended." Melanie took the document like it was a winning lottery ticket. She folded it carefully and slipped it into her purse. "Thank you, doctor. You have no idea how much this means to our family." I sat in the passenger seat of her car on the drive home, my head resting against the window, my eyes closed. She was humming along to the radio. She thought she had won. She had no idea that the recording device taped to the inside of my jacket had captured every word, every lie, every forged stroke of Loomis's pen. She had no idea that by this time tomorrow, that piece of paper would be the thing that destroyed her. What came next was the invasion. They moved in the following morning. Melanie arrived with a U-Haul and 2 hired men who started carrying my furniture out of my house before I had finished my coffee. My recliner, the one Joan and I had picked out together at that little shop in Galveston, the one that still smelled faintly of her perfume. If you pressed your face into the armrest, they hauled it out and dropped it on the lawn like a dead animal. "This is for your own good, Dad," Melanie said, directing the movers with the efficiency of a general sacking a city. "You need supervision. We cannot leave you out here alone." Dr. Loomis said so. Darren took the master bedroom. He didn't ask. He just carried his suitcase in and started hanging his shirts in Joan's closet. I watched him push her dresses to one side to make room. He didn't even take them off the hangers. He just shoved them into the corner like they were rags. They put me in the storage room off the garage. It had a concrete floor, a bare bulb, and a cot that they must have bought at an army surplus store. There was a small window near the ceiling that looked out at the dirt. The room smelled of motor oil and rust. "This is temporary," Melanie said, not meeting my eyes. "Until we get things sorted out." I didn't fight. I couldn't. If I fought, they would call the police. They would show them Loomis's paper. They would say I was violent, a danger to myself. I needed them to keep believing I was broken, so I shuffled into the storage room with my one suitcase and sat on the cot and listened to them rearrange my life above my head. Thump, thump, thump. The sound of boots walking on my ceiling. The sound of occupation. That evening, my granddaughter Kaylee showed up. She was 21, fresh out of a year of community college that she had dropped out of because it was, in her words, not her vibe. She walked past me in the hallway without a word and went straight to the kitchen, where she opened a bottle of wine from my cellar. She saw me standing in the doorway. She didn't say hello. She didn't ask how I was doing. She looked at me the way you look at a piece of furniture that came with a rental. "Mom says you are going to a home soon," she said, scrolling through her phone. "Can I have your truck? I need something for the beach." The truck was a 2014 Ford. It had 180,000 miles on it. It wasn't worth much. But Joan had sat in the passenger seat of that truck every Sunday morning for 12 years while we drove to the coast to watch the shrimp boats come in. The seat was worn in the shape of her. "I will think about it," I said. "What is there to think about? You are not going to be driving anymore." Kaylee didn't look up from her phone. "Honestly, Grandpa, you should probably stop driving now." "You almost hit a mailbox last week." I hadn't almost hit a mailbox. I hadn't driven anywhere last week, but the narrative was being written, and they didn't need my input for it. That night, I could hear music from upstairs. Bass so heavy it vibrated the cot. Kaylee had invited friends over. I could hear them laughing, hear the clink of glasses. At one point, someone came down to the garage to get more beer from the refrigerator. I heard a girl's voice say, "Who sleeps down here?" And Kaylee's voice answered, "Just my grandpa. He is basically furniture at this point. Ignore him." Furniture. That was the word. I lay on my cot in the dark, listening to my granddaughter's friends dance on my floors, drink my wine, and laugh about the old man in the basement. I turned on the recorder. I let it capture every sound, every insult, every footstep. Then I texted Pemberton. "How is the debt acquisition going?" His reply came 30 seconds later. "Done. Omega Trust now holds their mortgage, both car loans and $47,000 in credit card debt. You own them, Gene. Say the word." "Not yet," I typed back. "I need one more thing. I need them to cross the final line." 2 days later, I found it. I came upstairs early before anyone else was awake. The house smelled like stale pizza and spilled beer. Melanie was in the kitchen, her back to me. She was holding something up to the light, turning it slowly. My breath caught. It was Joan's locket, a gold locket with a tiny sapphire on the front that I had given her on our 40th anniversary. Inside was a photograph of us on our wedding day and a lock of Melanie's baby hair. Joan had worn it every day. She had asked to be buried with her ring, but wanted me to keep the locket for Melanie, for when the time was right. I had kept it in the safe in my study. The combination was Melanie's birthday. I should have been more creative. Melanie was on the phone. Yeah, she was saying, "It is real gold. There's a sapphire on the front. I took it to the jeweler in Fifth Street yesterday. He said it is worth about $4,000. I'm going to sell it online." Mom would not have cared. She was not sentimental. She would have wanted me to be practical. Joan was the most sentimental woman I had ever known. She cried at commercials. She kept every birthday card anyone ever gave her. She once drove 40 miles to return a library book because she felt guilty about the late fee. Melanie was lying about her mother to justify stealing from her ghost. I stepped into the kitchen. "Melanie," I said. My voice was steady, too steady. She turned around, startled. She saw me looking at the locket. "Dad, this is not what it looks like. I was just cleaning it. I was going to give it to Kaylee." "No, you were not," I said. "I heard you. You were selling it to buy something for yourself, with the money from your mother's memory." For a second, something flickered in her eyes. Something that might have been shame. Then it died, smothered by the same entitlement that had been growing in her like a tumor for years. "You don't understand finances, Dad," she snapped. "You can barely remember what day it is. We need the money. We are taking care of you, and that is not free. Think of this as rent. Rent." She was charging me rent to live in my own storage room. She was selling my dead wife's jewelry to pay the bill. I turned and walked back toward the garage. I stopped at the door. "Your mother would have forgiven you for the furniture," I said quietly. "She would have forgiven you for the bedroom, for the storage room, for the way you talk about me. But she would never have forgiven the locket. That was the line, Melanie, and you just crossed it." I went downstairs. I sat on the cot. I pulled out the phone. I texted Pemberton one word: "Tomorrow." Then I called Hank, my investigator. Hank was ex-FBI, the kind of man who could find a needle in a haystack and then tell you who manufactured the needle. He had been watching the house, documenting everything. "We are ready, Gene," Hank said. "Loomis was arrested this morning." He flipped immediately. "We have his full confession on tape. He admitted to accepting $5,000 from your daughter in exchange for the false diagnosis. We also have surveillance footage from his office that corroborates the recording from your jacket. The sheriff has the warrants signed." "Good," I said. "They are planning to meet the buyer at 10 tomorrow morning. They want to sell the property. Let them set the table. Then we flip it." That night, I slept better than I had in weeks. Not because the cot was comfortable. It wasn't. But because I knew that every hour that passed was an hour closer to the end. Morning came gray and heavy. The air tasted like rain that hadn't fallen yet. I sat in my corner of the kitchen, wearing the same clothes I had worn for 3 days because Melanie had packed away most of my wardrobe to make room for Darren's golf clubs. At 9:45, a silver Mercedes pulled up the driveway. A man in a charcoal suit got out. He was the buyer. His name was something I didn't bother remembering because he wasn't going to matter in 20 minutes. Melanie greeted him at the door with a handshake and a smile that could have sold ice to penguins. Darren was at the dining table with the paperwork spread out, the deed, the survey, the guardianship papers. He had a gold pen in his hand. It was probably the most expensive thing he owned that wasn't already in foreclosure. "Mr. Callahan," the buyer said, glancing at me in my corner. He nodded politely, the way you nod at a houseplant. "Let us get started," Darren said. "We want to close this quickly." The buyer sat down. He examined the deed. He asked for the competency ruling. Melanie produced Loomis's letter with the pride of a magician pulling a rabbit from a hat. "Everything is in order," she said. "My father has been declared incapacitated. I have emergency guardianship. I have full authority to authorize the sale." She picked up the pen. She brought the tip to the signature line. The front door opened. It didn't crash open like in a movie. It opened slowly, deliberately, the way a curtain rises. Sheriff Duchamp walked in first, his hand resting on his belt. Behind him were 2 deputies. Behind them was Pemberton, carrying a briefcase that looked like it contained the entire history of my family's betrayal. "Everybody stay where you are," Duchamp said. His voice was quiet, but it filled the room the way concrete fills a mold. "Rachel Miller. Jason Miller. I have warrants for your arrest." Melanie dropped the pen. It rolled off the table and hit the floor with a sound like a period at the end of a sentence. Darren stood up so fast his chair tipped backward. He looked at the door. He looked at the window. He was calculating escape routes. A deputy stepped forward, and he sat back down. "What is this?" Melanie shrieked. "We are conducting a legal transaction. This is my father's property, and I have the authority to." "You have nothing," I said. I stood up. I didn't shuffle. I didn't shake. I stood the way I used to stand on the deck of a ship when the waves were rough, and everyone was looking to me for direction. I'd buttoned my shirt. I straightened my collar. I looked my daughter in the eye. "That letter from Loomis is a fraud," I said. "Dr. Loomis was arrested yesterday morning. He confessed to accepting a bribe from you in exchange for a false diagnosis. I have the entire examination on audio and video, every lie, every fabricated symptom, every word." Melanie's face went white. Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. Pemberton stepped forward and opened his briefcase. He laid the documents on the table one by one, like a dealer laying cards. The original power of attorney, Mr. Marmust, Callahan signed 8 years ago, Pemberton said, requires activation by 2 board-certified neurologists approved by this firm. Dr. Loomis is not board-certified in neurology. He is not approved by this firm. His letter has no legal standing. Your emergency guardianship petition is void, and by attempting to execute a property sale using a fraudulent court document, you have committed forgery, conspiracy to commit fraud, and elder abuse. Darren crumpled first. He always did. He slid down in his chair like a man whose bones had dissolved. It was her idea, he whispered. She said you were losing it. She said it was the only way. I just went along with it. I didn't know it was illegal. You didn't know? I said. You didn't know it was illegal to fake a medical diagnosis, steal someone's guardianship rights, and sell their home out from under them? You are 44 years old, Darren. At what point does ignorance stop being an excuse and start being a choice? Melanie turned on him. You coward, she hissed. You absolute coward. You were happy enough to spend the money when you thought we would get away with it. They turned on each other like 2 dogs fighting over the last scrap. The united front, the loving couple taking care of their aging father, dissolved in seconds. Sheriff Duchamp moved in with the handcuffs. But I wasn't done. I pulled the blue folder from Pemberton's briefcase. I had been waiting for this moment. I had rehearsed it in the dark of the storage room, lying on the cot, staring at the ceiling. There was something else, I said. You think the worst part of today is the arrest. It is not. The worst part of today is the arrest. It is not. The worst part is this. I held up a piece of paper. It was a deed transfer. Your house, I said. The one in Greenbrier Estates. The one with the pool and the 3-car garage. First National sent your mortgage to collections 2 weeks ago. I bought the debt. All of it. Your mortgage, your car loans, your credit cards. Every penny you owe in this world, you now owe to me. The silence was total. What? Darren whispered. Omega Trust, I continued. You have never heard of it. Nobody has. It is a holding company. I am the sole owner. I purchased your defaulted mortgage for 60 cents on the dollar. I purchased your auto loans. I purchased the $47,000 in credit card debt you racked up buying things you could not afford to impress people who do not care about you. You were not just going to prison, Darren. You were going to prison broke. And when you get out, you are going to owe me every cent. Melanie stared at me. The rage had drained from her face. What was left was something raw. It was the face of someone who has just realized they brought a knife to a war, and the other side brought the entire army. You can't, she whispered. You are just a retired roughneck. You live on Social Security. You drive a truck with rust on it. How could you possibly? Because you never bothered to ask, I said. You never once asked what I did before I retired. You never once asked how I could afford 42 acres of waterfront property on a pension. You saw the boots and the flannel, and you made your assumptions. You thought I was simple. You thought I was stupid. You thought I was dying, and you were just waiting for nature to take its course. I took a step toward her. I built Callahan Maritime, Melanie. I built it from one boat into a fleet. I built the docks you see from the highway. I signed the checks that keep 3,000 people employed. I kept it quiet because I wanted you to grow up humble. I wanted you to earn things instead of inheriting them, and you repaid that by trying to have me declared incompetent so you could sell my home to cover your husband's gambling debts. Melanie's legs gave out. She sat down on the floor, right there on the tile, her designer dress bunching around her knees. Daddy, she said. Her voice was small. It was the voice of the little girl who used to crawl into my lap during thunderstorms. Please, I am your daughter. I looked down at her. I looked down at her. I thought about the locket. I thought about Joan's dresses shoved into the corner of the closet. I thought about the storage room and the cot and the bare bulb. I thought about Kaylee calling me furniture. My daughter would never have done this, I said quietly. I don't know who you are. The deputies took them out in handcuffs. Darren was crying. Melanie was silent, which was worse. She walked out of the house she had tried to steal with her chin up and her eyes empty, and she did not look back at me. Then Kaylee pulled up. She got out of her car and stood in the driveway, staring at the police cruisers. She was wearing a jacket that cost $800. I knew because I had paid for it. She ran inside, past the deputies, and found me standing by the fireplace. "Grandpa," she said, breathless. "What happened? What is going on?" "Mom just texted me that she is being arrested. What about my apartment? What about Barcelona? I was supposed to go to Barcelona next month. You are paying for Barcelona, right? You can fix this, right? Just write a check or something. Make it go away." Her parents were being led away in handcuffs for trying to steal my life, and her first thought was her vacation. I reached into my pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. I held it out to her. She took it. She unfolded it. She stared at it. "This is a job application," she said, "for a restaurant. The Blue Anchor. That is a diner, Grandpa." "A diner?" "I know the owner," I said. "His name is Sal. He needs a morning waitress. It pays minimum wage plus tips. You start at 5:30 a.m. If you show up on time, you will train you." Kaylee looked at the paper like I had handed her a live snake. "I am not working at a diner. I am an influencer. I have 2,000 followers." "You have $0, I said. "Your trust fund is frozen. Your parents' credit cards are canceled. Your apartment lease expires at the end of the month. After that, you're on your own. If you want to eat, you work. If you want a roof, you earn it." She crumpled the application and threw it at my feet. "You are the worst grandfather in the world," she screamed. "You are ruining everything. I hate you." She stormed out. The door slammed so hard a picture fell off the wall. It was a photo of Joan and me at Melanie's high school graduation. The glass cracked down the middle, splitting us apart. I bent down and picked up the crumpled application. I smoothed it out on the table. She would be back. When the credit cards stopped working and the friends stopped answering, she would be back. And the job would be waiting. I walked through the house after everyone was gone. It was quiet. It was wrecked. Their furniture was everywhere. Chrome and glass where oak and leather used to be. The storage room still smelled like motor oil. The master bedroom still had Darren's golf shoes by the closet. But it was mine again. Pemberton stayed. He sat at the kitchen table while I made coffee, with the only mug they hadn't thrown away, a chipped blue mug that said, "World's okayest Grandpa." Kaylee had given it to me as a joke 3 Christmases ago. It was the only genuine gift she had ever given me, and she didn't even know it. "What now, Jean?" Pemberton asked. I looked out the kitchen window. The magnolia tree was still there. Joan had planted it the year Melanie was born. It had survived hurricanes and droughts and 40 Texas summers. It would survive this too. "Sell their house," I said. "Take the proceeds and put them into a fund. I want to create something. A legal defense fund for elderly people being exploited by their families. Hire attorneys. Hire investigators. Find the old men and women sitting in storage rooms and basements, the ones whose children are forging their signatures and stealing their savings. Find them and fight for them." Pemberton wrote it down. "What do you want to call it?" "The Joan Callahan Foundation," I said. He nodded. "And Kaylee, keep watching her. If she takes the job at the diner, if she shows up, works hard, and makes it 6 months without asking anyone for a handout, send her the application for the state university. Not Barcelona. Not some resort campus in Europe. A real school. A place where she has to earn her grades the way normal people do. You think she will do it?" I poured the coffee. The mug was warm in my hands. "I think she is 21 years old, and 21-year-olds are mostly made of the people who raised them. Her parents raised her to be entitled and lazy, but somewhere in there is Joan's blood. And Joan was the toughest woman I ever knew. If there is a piece of Joan in that girl, it will come out when the money stops and the real world starts." I took a sip. The coffee was strong and bitter and perfect. I sold the property 3 months later. I could not stay. Every room held two sets of memories now, the ones I had built with Joan and the ones my daughter had burned on top of them. Every time I looked at the master bedroom, I saw Darren's shoes. Every time I opened the closet, I saw Joan's dresses shoved aside. I needed clean air. I needed a place where the ghosts were only the ones I had invited. I bought a house on the coast near Port Aransas. Small, sturdy, built on pilings that could take a storm. I could hear the Gulf from my porch. I could smell the salt when the wind was right. It was nothing like the farm, and that was the point. Pemberton came to visit last week. He brought a bottle of bourbon and a folder. The sentencing came through, he said. Melanie got 6 years. Darren got 8. The federal charges for wire fraud pushed Darren's sentence higher because he used electronic transfers to facilitate the property sale. I nodded. I poured the bourbon. I didn't feel triumph. I didn't feel satisfaction. I felt the strange, hollow ache of a man who has amputated a limb to save the body. The body survives. The limb is gone. You learn to live without it, but you never stop reaching for things with a hand that isn't there. Did they ask for me? I said. Pemberton shook his head. Darren cried through the whole hearing. Melanie sat still and stared at the wall. She didn't say a word. Her lawyer tried to argue that she was under financial duress. The judge was not moved. And the girl? Pemberton smiled. It was the first real smile I had seen from him in months. She is still at the Blue Anchor. Sal says she was late the first week and he docked her tips. She cried in the walk-in freezer for 10 minutes, and then came back out and finished her shift. She has not been late since. She is paying her rent. She eats at the diner because Sal gives the staff a free meal. She sold the $800 jacket. She bought a used Honda Civic with the money. I felt something warm in my chest. It was small and fragile, like a match struck in a dark room. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't resolution. It was hope, barely enough to see by, but enough to keep walking. Keep the scholarship fund open, I said. If she makes it to Christmas, send her the application. Pemberton closed the folder. He looked at me for a long time. You are a hard man, Jean Callahan, he said. I looked at my hands. They were old now, spotted and scarred from decades of work. But they were steady. They had always been steady when it mattered. I am not hard, I said. I am just done pretending that love means letting people destroy you. I spent my whole life building things. I built ships. I built a company. I built a family. And when the family tried to tear down everything else, I had to choose what to save. I chose the foundation. I chose the truth. I chose to stand up in my own house and say, this is mine, and you cannot take it by calling me crazy. I stood up and walked to the porch. The sun was going down over the Gulf, painting the water in deep golds and burning reds. A pelican dove into the shallows and came up with a fish. People tell you that family is everything, that blood is thicker than water, that you owe your children the world because you brought them into it. I believed that for 69 years. I believed it so deeply that I hid my success to keep them humble. I believed it so completely that I gave them everything and asked for nothing, and they mistook my generosity for weakness. Here is what I know now. Blood is biology. Family is a choice. Family is the people who sit with you when the house is empty and the coffee is bitter and the only sound is the wind coming off the water. Family is the lawyer who answered his phone at 7:42 on a Tuesday night. Family is the investigator who worked through the weekend to keep an old man from losing his home. Family is not the daughter who put you in a storage room and sold your wife's locket for pocket money. I lost my daughter. I may still lose my granddaughter. But I did not lose myself. I did not lose my name. I did not lose the life Joan and I built together. And if you are out there listening, if you are someone's parent or grandparent, and you feel like you are being managed instead of loved, handled instead of heard, if they talk about you like you are furniture and treat your memories like clutter, you have the right to close the door. You have the right to say no. You are not cruel for protecting yourself. You are not selfish for demanding respect. The people who love you will never make you feel small. If this story meant something to you, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more. And I want to hear from you. If you were in my position, would you have sent them to prison or would you have just walked away? Tell me in the comments. See you in the next one.